Hi, everybody. I'm Jimmy Floyd. I'm an architect at 24 Hour Fitness. And what we are is we're a fitness company in the United States. We're the largest fitness company. We do work across many states. Get this over here for you. We operate about 450 gyms at the moment with 4.5 million members that we service on a daily basis. And when I got to 24 Hour Fitness there about 5 years ago, we started looking at what we had in production and the problems we were having, meeting our business needs and such. And what really came apparent to us is that being a heavily rules-based company, we operate in a lot of states. We got to do a lot of regulatory stuff. We're a little bit in the health industry and such. It's like, well, as we started to move fast to meet our business needs, our code very much started to disperse, and we started getting multiple versions of the same thing out there, and this started causing us severe maintenance problems. We had a hard time figuring out what was going on in production. We're having a hard time just answering the question, how does a simple task work? Right? Because I might have the same task out there 3 or 4 times, and they had slightly different rules in them because we were constantly scared of breaking what we had in production. We're a 24-hour company. We're live all day long, and we support the entire state. So going down is something that we don't accept at any point in time in our days. So we immediately went into that problem, and then we started to expand very quickly into SaaS, which then introduced a whole other set of problems to us, because they actually started to cause us to go down more than any of our in-house stuff did. So all that combined is really what started to happen to us. So we started to evaluate what was available in the market and stuff, and we went to some very common tools like TIPCO or MuleSoft or something like that. And outside of the cost, which was very, very expensive for us, which is something we couldn't bring on, it was also very proprietary. It's like, how do we develop in that? How do we make sure that I don't have a special development thing on the side, that I'm just hiring developers for that, while our mainline development is something else? Because that, too, comes with a high cost for us. So as you start looking around, we kind of saw that BPMN as a whole kind of solved our problem. It offered us great visibility in the code, offered us a way to see these business rules in action. So we started looking at what was available in the market. And what we had there was JBMP, which a lot of people know, Activity, which was out there, and Camunda. And as we started getting them up and running, it became very clear to us that Camunda was pretty much well above everybody else in the market in this industry, and what it offered in the BPM spec, and then what we can do to it from a code perspective, right? Because there's no tool out there that's perfect for you, and you always have to get in there just a little bit and add your little spin to it to make sure it meets your business needs. And Camunda very much offered that. So as you can see here, just on there, as I was talking about, it really worked for us. We're a Java-based shop, and we're like, okay, how do we take one of these tools and start using it today, without a lot of spin-up and a lot of cost of getting the option? And Camunda, just being a Java-based platform and all the different ways you can deploy it, they had multiple deployment mechanisms. We were able to immediately just fit it right into our pipeline, which allowed us within just a matter of weeks to have things developed and already running through our pipeline to production. It just was not a difficult thing to do. It really fit well, and it offers many amazing things in there. Within that, one of the things that was very nice to us was this concept of being visual. And I'm going to show you some things about that a little later on, how that being visual and then development cycle really helps you solve your problems. For us, though, we did, as we're getting out there, we're going to be honest with you, we had a lot of challenges, right? But these challenges are to be expected with not just us, but any tool you bring in. And so Camunda, in its core, right, it is a visual tool made for user tasks. We are using it as a completely real-time integration platform. And what that means is we're pushing extreme amounts of volume through it that should be taking milliseconds to finish. Right? It's all user interactions in our website, our mobile apps, in our clubs when you come in. We have a check-in mechanism. You walk into our club, you put in your fingerprint, and it immediately lets you in, but it also gives you tons of information. It tells you how much you paid, if you owe anything to us, all this information. We got to get that to the user in milliseconds, because we only have a very small window to actually interact with them before they walk into our club, right? We want that process to be seamless. We're not really here to get in their way. So in order to make that happen in Camunda, we really had to do a lot of our own due diligence to the platform. So one of the things in Camunda that didn't scale very well for us was their whole history mechanism. So we basically had to turn that completely off. So as of today in our production environment, nothing's there. And it was a trade-off, for this real-time system, do I need to see every piece of history, or do I need to be really fast and get the development savings that we get? And it was pretty easy for us to say the development savings was way more important than just seeing a couple of pieces of history over time. Another thing that's kind of there right now that we had to write our own tools to solve was within the platform that exists in Camunda. There's no real easy way to take a complicated process that you may have broken up into mini sub-processes and drill down into them. And I'll show you how we use that. We really use Camunda more as a functional-based system. We develop tons of processes, and then we orchestrate using them because we have a lot of common business functions that are just used over and over and over again. And another thing we really spent a lot of time being concerned about was upgrading, right? And that is, we're running everything through this, and we can't have an upgrade bring us down in production. And no matter which piece of software you have, that's a very complicated task, and it's something we spend a lot of time in, right? And so I'll explain to you how we do that, but we basically just put a interface layer in between Camunda. We run this all through JEE. We do a little bit of Spring Boot, but mainly it's EE. And we have an EE layer on top of it that abstracts out the way Camunda from our code. So none of our developers actually integrate into Camunda. It actually provides us a lot of functionality. What that allows us to do is to provide a set of common functions to everybody. So in that EE layer, if you have a bunch of BPM processes out there and you got a delegate that does something over and over and over again, we're able to inject that delegate at the interface layer. So nobody even knows that a delegate has been written to solve this problem. We just put that code in the interface layer. You just do a little annotation on our code, and bam, you got this delegate that's doing work within Camunda. Totally lessens the amount of code we have to write to get things in production within this BPM platform. That's really important because it showed us that we could take Camunda, move it within our platform, and provide a very low-code mechanism. Not no code, but very low-code way of getting things into production. So that was from a development. One of the things that really has happened to us that has been, we didn't know if it would happen, but it was a really big deal to us. And that is our life cycle of getting what we want from our product owners down to our developers and making sure everybody's on the same page. Being as our code's very rule-based, we'd get these spreadsheets, we would get these big word write-ups, and everybody would go, okay, am I doing that right? Then the code would be done, and now you're comparing the code to all the write-ups to making sure everything's lined up. And then we're going through these major test cases to figure out, well, are those things actually, is the code actually handling every one of those test cases? And that was a long cycle for us. It was a very long communication cycle. Some of these complicated things can take us months to get into production because of the assurances we need that they worked. Just the mere bringing in of Camunda, the DMNs and the BPMs, we've cut that cycle into weeks in a sprint. We can get the full communication because our product owners now write up in their terms, their pure business terms. With no understanding of how we're going to implement this, this is what I want it to look like. I need to validate that this member is an active member, and I need to validate that they have no past due payments, and all the things that the business cares about. They just lay it out in the BPM in words. And they hand that off down to our developers. And our developers are now able to take that, look at it, and quickly turn it into the actual work, because we have a set of common processes that generally will do that. And so it's cut that span from months into just a week for us, to 2 weeks, to get this done. And it's just been amazing for us. The flip side of that is, since we're doing a lot more through terminology, through these processes, and less through standard code, usually Java code in our case, we're actually finding a lot more of our problems early in our design phase. Because you're able, once the developers develop the BPM with no backing to it, right? It's not calling anything. They've just taken the BPM in, taken the business terminology, and turned it into the technical terminology. Now we can get that code review up to maybe our architects and other people and go look through it, and we can find holes in those designs, those BPM designs, before we ever put a single line of implementation to it. And we're not talking design documents here, right? So you're going in the standard process, you're going through a design document. Everybody approves that design document. Then you implement that design document. And then you're doing a check, did that design document actually, or did your code actually implement that design document? Well, since the developers are taking the BPM and putting the skeleton implementation in place, That implementation, we call it our implementation design. We no longer even make design documents for most of our processes. The BPM is our design document. It's cut that whole process out, and now we get real assurance that not only do they solve the business needs, we're able to come in and validate that it does without ever writing a single line of actual code. Right? Before they even plug this thing in to call on a SaaS service to say, go gather this information for me so I can run it through the business rules. We've already validated the whole step, the whole process. That's allowed us to actually cut our development time of some of these things that would normally take us 3 to 4 sprints down to 1 sprint of design and checking the rules out to just another sprint of implementation. So something that was taking us a total of 4 months to do in the past, we're now getting done in a span of 2 sprints. So this has been a great success for us. The other thing that's happened is the testing of the systems, the shared testing. Since we developed Camunda with a lot of shared, you can do them as services, but we do them right there with the integration platform. I've mentioned we have a very common use case. Are you a valid member at this point in time? You give us your credentials, we go and make sure that you've paid your bills and stuff, and you are an active, valid member with us. That particular process is used across the board, no matter what you do, many of our business processes. Well, we're able to really wrap that within a Camunda process on its own, test it, and only deploy changes to that. It really does follow the same standard mechanisms, but it's not integrated into a Java library that I'm tightly binding to, that I'm keeping up in Maven or something like that. It's just a process out there, so I'm able to change it, test it, get it deployed to Camunda really fast. For us, it's a big deal because, like a lot of standard places, we have a long change request process. And then we have to document everything that change might affect so our business can approve us taking that to production. What's the risk level to that? Well, now that I got this all on BPM, I can actually go and tell them this is what it affects. Right? I'm not painting histories and histories of that, so I can give them high assurances that this can test that. And since we put Camunda in place, we've had, and this is now coming on 3 years, we've only had 1 incident where a developer deployed something and it broke something else in prod in the Camunda instance. Right? And we compare that to our cycle before where we were doing traditional development with Java code and libraries. It was more of an occurrence when we really cut it down, but I would say we were at 10 times the scale of the number of errors that we were getting when we got out there. Oh, the deployment failed. Why did it fail? So somebody was missing a library, somebody. It didn't get promoted to Maven properly or something like that. Camunda has cut a lot of that out for us, which has been a great success for us. So where we're at right now. Right now in production, I have 330 processes developed. Most of them are what we call shared process. They're used over and over again, and I have about 90 DMNs. To show this to you, I'm logged into my production environment. That's my dev environment. This is my production environment, and this is what's happened in the last 24 hours. Oh. How do I get out of that?
Wow.
Yeah.
How do we get out of that?
Turn off the presentation mode.
Cool. There we go.
So this is my last 24 hours in our production. We've done 101 million BPM instances, done 108 million decision evaluations. This is what we do on a daily basis. The numbers fluctuate. We'll go anywhere from 80 to even a little bit more than this because depending on when maybe we're doing a sell or whatever we're doing that can drive traffic, because we run everything through it. So as you can see, I got really 333 active in production and 88 DMNs. Right now, we're in the middle of continuing our transformation in Camunda. And by the end of next year, we're releasing the rest of our enterprise that we currently don't have running through Camunda. And that's going to take us a while. It's surrounding our billing processes and such. So it was a 2-year product for us. So what I got waiting in dev right now, so this is waiting to get up to production, and this is not done. This will grow over the next few months as we continue to hit our deadline of next April. I got 521 processes, so it's another almost 200 processes we got waiting, and double the amount of DMNs we got waiting. And both of these numbers will grow. And so this is what we got coming down the pipeline that we're getting ready to produce. So I just wanted to show you the real things. I mean, this is what we got going on right now. So within that, let me get back to this. I'm going to take you through a kind of a little use case we have and how we kind of use Camunda on a daily basis. So as I said, we treat Camunda more as a functional programming platform. We create a connector, and those connectors would be to all of our different SaaS providers, our internal microservices, and such. And within those connectors, we'll put everything that has to do with like maybe pooling, authentication, just for that system and stuff like that, and we just expanded the Camunda connector, right? It works, it functions just like a great library. We just do it once, and now it's free there to use, and they just grab it. It's a process we got going out there. Then, since we're using this as an integration platform, a big thing we do is a lot of transformation. I'm pulling information from many, many systems, transforming that data to move it, from all the dispersed systems, getting it up to my client or getting it into another system as we move the data around. So we have all these XML translations, JSON translations that we have in there. And this is just the common things. If you go look through our processes, those are the most heavily used things we do. We have a bunch more. So we just kind of take all of these common foundational pieces, and then we make out the business process, and then that business process just orchestrates all these shared things, right? What that ends in for us is, I'll show you this little thing we have here. On this little chart right here, this is kind of a little basic piece of a lead system we do here. Every one of the plus signs up there, which is just an execution path there in Camunda, every one of those is actually calling another process. So you can see that this process right here is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different process calls out to it. So this is actually a simple use case we have. You actually can write this in code pretty simply, but what Camunda did for us is made the simple beautiful, right? Somebody comes and asks us, how do we get a lead into our system? What are the steps we go to? I automatically know I got three outcomes of this. I'm not digging through the code trying to figure out how I do the returns. Oh, in this case, I kind of set my return data this way. In this case, I'm setting my return data. I already know over there that I got 3 ways of returning out of this. You work your way backwards. I can see right away that one of them is an error case, right? I'm going down the main path line. I got an error at the create lead. This is actually something we had to put in later when we started dealing with SaaS, because our SaaS provider for what we do CRM into was going down more than we wanted it to. So we had to build a back-end process to say, you know what, in order to keep our business going, I'm going to generate leads behind the scenes and then update it when it comes back online. But I can see right away, if I go in there and I try to create that lead, I get an error, I'm going to go generate that lead stuff myself. You come back even further, this is quickly what we do. We got a little box right there that says, find the lead, call search lead. For our business process, if the lead already exists, right, we're not going to go create a new one. So you see right away, if I find the lead, I'm going down the bottom, and I got the lead found, I go down the middle, I'm going to create that lead. So right there in this talk, if you had this in code, I was able to explain this to you in literally just a few minutes. If you've never been in our code before and somebody asks you this question, you're digging through the code, somebody's going to do it, it's easy. It's going to take them 15, 20 minutes. Now it's an instantaneous response to my business. How do we do this? What are our cases? I just open it up and I say, this is what we do. This is a simple thing that it made just simpler. It made it easy for us, Now we're going to move a little bit more complicated. This craziness is a little process we have when we're doing case management, and we don't do the case management inside of Camunda. We do that in our own case management system, but we have to figure out how to move cases around. And this is basically our auto escalation paths, right? And it gets crazy because we have all these crazy job codes, different titles. We have to decide, okay, if it was at this stage, I need to send it to this person, send them an email. If it fails at a certain stage in it, I need to do something else. So when we had this coded up and we transferred it over, this was a combination, this is what you see up here, was about 600 lines of code. And a combination of about 10 to 15 classes. And we got that down to this. And anybody who's in software development, that's powerful. Because every line of code we write like this is very expensive for us to maintain, and it slows us down. If you have to change this in code, how do you determine which pathways are you interrupting? If I got an error coming in, how do I make sure that I don't have something that really cares about that error and that I'm not going to break something I don't know about, right? So we've taken 600 lines of code and turned it into one documentation. That's great. There's another piece to this right there in the middle where you kind of see all those lines come together. This is just kind of handling the escalation. What decides the escalation, which again was another set of code, is that little box in the middle. That is a DMN. And that DMN looks like this. Right? You see some complicated in there. If I'm in this middle state right here, I got to do this. This by itself, the other one was 600 lines of code. This by itself was a combination of 4 classes and several hundred lines of code. We got that down to one single beautiful little chart. And my technical people do not maintain this. My BAs maintain this and change this without us needing to know it. If they want to change their business rules on how an escalation gets from one person to another in our club, we made the process work. We hand this off to them. They change it. And it goes through our pipeline. So now I've not only taken away a lot of code from my environment, I have moved some of the management away from the most expensive people we hire in our IT department. And now I'm able to get them to concentrate on solving actual business problems and not figuring out how to change a business rule. And for us, that's where we spent most of our time in an IT department, was figuring out how to change these business rules. Right? If you take these two together and try to figure out how to maintain those two together and provide your business value on new stuff, not just maintaining stuff. So that's what kind of where we're at and what we've gotten out of it. And I just want to show you a couple of real use cases. You know, how it makes the simple even better and how it makes the complicated manageable. So where are we at right now in our Camunda? So what we're moving to right now is, as we moved Camunda into this ESP structure, we're actually breaking it down even further. So what we've introduced in this last year is Spring Boot Camunda microservices. And that's a fully wrapped Camunda with an in-memory database with history turned off that we can just spin up that solves one functional thing. So it's basically a set of processes that are functional that we can spin off at will. And we call this the business tier. You know, that's where you'd actually do evaluation. Our mainline ESB just gathers that data and hands it off to these microservices. And of course, we've moved that to in-memory. One of the things that's happened really great, as you can see, I got somewhere nearing 600 processes coming through. We're in a project that we originally cost out in time-wise to take us about 3 years. And from a development standpoint, even with all the craziness going on, we're getting it done about 2 times faster than we had in our traditional development pipeline because of this tool. Because we're able to more quickly validate these things that are going on and get the design and the code phase combined into one phase. And that's very powerful, right? If you don't have to go through writing a document that's different from your code, if they're the same thing, it gives you a lot of power and speed. Another thing we're looking at is ZB. ZB wasn't around when we started this experiment. So what we're really looking at doing is taking ZB and turning that into our orchestration layer and then running around at the Camunda microservices. They offer 2 different things for us, and we don't really want to get rid of Camunda because some of the things that provide us are very powerful. So that's kind of where we are and where we're looking at in the future. So I have in here for you this slide I think is available through Camunda. If anybody has questions for me in the long term, just feel free to email me. Put something in there like, you know, Camunda or something so that I can get it off to a spot to where I can answer to it. I can't promise I'd answer it right away, but I'll try to get to anything in a timely fashion.